Hello, my name is Diane Rivoli. I'm an author and poet from Rochester, New York. I never thought I'd write a book, but that all changed 5 years ago when inspiration like none I had ever experienced burst over me like hot kernels of popping corn. The result was my first novel, License. A poetry collection soon followed, and last year I published my second novel, Push and Pull. Push and Pull is based on real people that I know and love and is about the challenges that come from being gay in a heterosexual world, not only for the one that is gay, but for those close to them as well. I'd like to read two excerpts from Push and Pull to you now. The first is called A Shotgun Wedding. Ebony Jade Randolph. Jay still thought about her sometimes. How could he not? His daughter, Mina, was a young woman now, and especially from the side, she looked just like her mother, his ex-wife. Ebony Jade Randolph. It was what she took with her Nikon camera that had first grabbed his attention. The fur coat of gray, green, and black mold on a forgotten sandwich, the writhing mass of white maggots feasting on dead robin. Her gaunt and grisly had stood out in sharp contrast to the sun shimmers and zoomed-in scrutinies of the other photography students that hung on the wall outside 271 Newhouse Hall. They screamed and clawed at you. They made you want to look away at the same time as they made you want to look more closely. And Jay Hendershot had wondered, as he hung his own sparkling gems of light dancing on sea spray and frolicking carousel horses, what went on inside Ebony Jade Randolph's head when she snapped them. Ebony Jade herself was svelte and fine, with eyes the color of ripe figs and smooth, nut-brown skin unmarred by freckle, blemish, or scar, except for one tiny mole to the left of her mouth, a beauty mark like that of Marilyn Monroe. And Ebony Jade had strong, equine legs that raced her down the track, blazing to take the finish line. Jay had found himself mesmerized by the detonating photos Ebony Jade took, entranced by her flawless skin, awed by the long stride of those perfect legs. And Ebony Jade ended up taking not only the finish line with those perfect legs of hers, but running off with Jay's virginity as well, with what lay at the top. And after the surge and the explosion, after the heady rush had waned, Jay felt like he had just told the biggest lie of his life. But Ebony was soft and warm, deep and dark, and somehow Jay found himself coming back for more. And Ebony was bright and intense and passionate. Her laugh turned dusk to day. Her eyes shot fire or glimmered like stars. And 6 months later, Jay found himself on bended knee, opening a small velvet box before her. And 6 months after that, he was standing at the front of Apostle Baptist Church, watching Ebony Jade Randolph walk down the aisle to meet him. Ebony had never looked more beautiful than she did that day, with the delicate netting of black and white pearls shimmering in her short dark hair and threaded into the bodice of her cream-colored wedding gown. Jay's tuxedo had been black, his shirt white, his vest and tie the same cream as Ebony's dress. Black and white was the theme, garbing the entire wedding party, adorning table settings, bobbing in balloons floating about the ceiling. Black and white was a testament, a statement to hewing barriers, forging opposites, and freeing souls. If hewing and forging had simply meant cutting the thorns from the stems of white roses and bundling them with black satin, if mingling and freeing had referred only to untangling the black and white balloons that got twisted in their black and white ribbons, maybe there would have been a few less RSVPs marked unable to attend, fewer uncomfortable smiles and stiff handshakes, but most of the brown and pink faces that had come together for this black and white wedding had their glasses raised in cheers and celebration. "Such a happy day! Congratulations, Jay," his cousin Tony had said. "Oh, Jay, you and Ebony make such a beautiful couple, and you're going to have the most beautiful babies. Those mixed-race babies are always the most beautiful. I've always said that," his Aunt Donna had said. "What a wonderful ceremony that was. I'm so happy for the both of you. I'm surprised you didn't wait till after graduation, though, unless, I hope you don't mind my asking, I can't tell by looking at Ebony or anything, but is she pregnant? Is there a baby on the way?" his Aunt Tina had asked. A shotgun wedding? How many people besides Aunt Tina had thought that? The speck that would become his daughter Mina wouldn't start percolating for another few days. The best souvenir a honeymoon could offer. Love. It was all about love. Love was the reason for popping the question. Love and the impetuousness of youth, the reason for the short turnaround from proposal to wedding march. Love and taking advantage of the situation before the dazzle began to fade, and doing what was expected of him while he could still convince himself that it could work. Taking advantage. Had he taken advantage of Ebony too? Not consciously, but looking back, Jay figured that he probably had. He had used her to follow the footsteps his parents thought a man should take, but with a twist. If he had to suppress who and what he was and do what they expected of him, why not pay it forward and make it hard for them to do what he expected of them, except the wife he had chosen? Oh, it wasn't that his parents didn't like Ebony. His mother hadn't even flinched when he brought her home for dinner that first time, with her ripe fig eyes and nut-brown skin. "I hope you like pot roast, Ebony Jade," she had said, her smile warm and welcoming. "It's my specialty." "So, you're on the women's track team. Are you a sprinter? You know, I ran cross-country when I was in high school," his dad had said, impressed with Ebony's achievements and proud of his own. They had no problem accepting his black friend, but a black friend and a black girlfriend are two different things, and a black girlfriend and a black wife different yet again. It had taken 3 stiff shots of black velvet for Clark Hendershot to lose the stiff handshake he had offered well-wishers when they slapped him on the back and father of the groom congratulations. It had taken a lively song spun by the DJ and half a bottle of White Zinfandel for Beverly Hendershot's forced half-smile and stony eyes to give way to something that in any way resembled happiness during the mother-son dance. Expect, accept, suppress, obligation. The wrong words to build a relationship. The wrong words to anchor a marriage. But he had loved Ebony, hadn't he? He called her his gazelle and his gemstone in the halcyon days of fresh-faced romance. It wasn't until later, when he couldn't keep his eyes from straying to the hunky guy at the hardware store, when he couldn't get it up for Ebony Jade unless he fantasized about what lay bulging behind the zipper of said hunky guy's jeans, that things began to sour. After that, he had called Ebony Jade Randolph different things. And now, the second excerpt, called, "Could This Really Be the End?" Oh, the glory of the morning, especially when it followed, as it did this morning, a night with a particular kind of glory all its own. Summer dawned, and fresh was the breeze, warm the sun on her face, warm the cup of coffee in her hand, and warm was Beverly's heart as she sat at the table on Herb's backyard patio, the bustling sounds and enticing smells of Herb cooking breakfast for them wafting from the open kitchen window behind her. Breakfast would be buttermilk pancakes this especially glorious morning, Beverly knew. After whipping up countless batches year after year for their church's annual pancake supper, buttermilk pancakes were Herb's point of pride. A few strips of bacon or a couple sausage links might have been nice, but Beverly knew there would be none of those. Herb didn't eat pork. What there would be was plenty of butter and maple syrup, and most importantly, there would be Herb sitting across from her with a smile. No sausage link was worth more than that. "Do you need any help in there?" Beverly called out, turning her head so her mouth was aimed toward the house and her voice had a better chance of making it into Herb's hearing aid-powered ears. "Nope, I've got everything under control. You stay right out there and enjoy the sun." Beverly smiled, affection soft on her face. It was the answer she had expected. As she turned back to look out into the yard again, the sash on her housecoat loosened and the light cotton fabric shifted, exposing her bare leg from ankle to crotch. Her panties would have shown if she were wearing panties. Like a vision, the essence of the glories she had shared last night with Herb cavorted into her mind. Heat pulsed in her suddenly moist nether regions. The night held no ownership over the pleasures of the body, did it? Was there any reason Beverly had to wait until then? Beverly rose from her seat. She let her housecoat loosen completely and fall from her shoulders. She stood, willing Herb to glance out and see her there, alluring in her nakedness, imagining how she would glide then into the house where desire would consume them, right there on the kitchen counter, next to the bowl of pancake batter. As if, chuckling, Beverly quickly drew the housecoat back over herself and knotted the sash, glad that Herb hadn't seen her. He was far too conservative to appreciate the risque. He'd be mortified just to know she had come out to sit on his patio with nothing on under her housecoat but her birthday suit. Years ago, she probably would have been mortified herself, but age had made her bolder. "Hey, Bev," it was Herb calling her. "Want to eat breakfast outside instead of in?" Beverly turned towards the window with her reply, careful this time to hold her housecoat in place so it didn't slip off her leg. "That would be wonderful. It's gorgeous out here. I'm going to come in and help you carry out the stuff." Beverly had to admit, as eager as she had been for some male companionship and to rekindle her sex life, the stronger of the emotions that had pounded in her heart at the thought was fear. She'd read the articles. Sexual inactivity in combination with the hormonal changes of the postmenopausal woman often leads to vaginal atrophy and consequently to difficult and painful sexual intercourse. In other words, use it or lose it. And Beverly hadn't used it in 10 years. Luckily, often was not always, and her fears had been for naught. Still, even though all the parts involved had been in working order, the first time they'd done the deed, it hadn't gone that smoothly. Herb's manhood lived under the constant shadow of his Santa Claus-like belly, and getting from point A to point B had required a bit of creative maneuvering. But they'd managed. Navigating each other's hills and valleys never posed a problem for them anymore. Practice makes perfect, they say, and they've been practicing at least once a week for 6 months now. "So what do you think? Bev?" "What?" Beverly had been smiling dreamily, staring absently off into space with her coffee cup stalled halfway between the table and her lips. She focused her eyes on Herb now and brought the forgotten cup to her lips for a sip. I'm sorry, were you saying something? I was just asking how you liked the pancakes. What were you thinking about? About how good the pancakes are, and about how glad I am to be sharing this beautiful morning with you. Herb smiled and reached across the table to give Beverly's hand a squeeze. Beverly wondered sometimes why it was that she liked Herb so much. She would have thought that if she ever fell in love again, it would be with someone similar to her dear husband Clark. But, except for the fact that Herb had a penis, he wasn't very much like Clark at all. Before Clark got sick, he had always been muscular and athletic. Herb was rotund. She and Clark had enjoyed sharing a bottle of wine together from time to time. Herb was a teetotaler. Clark liked to dance around the house with her to the lively beats of rock and roll. Herb was into the very undanceable grooves of smooth jazz. But Herb had the bluest eyes and the warmest smile. He attended church every Sunday and had a deep faith in God that resonated in Beverly's soul. And, well, back to the sex again, Herb was an expert in the ways of the tongue. Hey, look at this! Herb had been perusing the newspaper. There's a jazz fest coming up next month in Hendricks. Really? Hendricks is only about an hour's drive from here. Want to go? I sure was thinking about it. Herb's eyes were as wide as a kid's at Christmas. Then he lost the glow. But it's jazz. I know you're not into it that much. Would you really want to go? I would, because you know what? Jazz is actually starting to grow on me. Maybe we could spend the whole weekend. Book a couple nights in some nice B&B. Maybe. Herb's head bobbed up and down, then the bobbing sped up as the idea caught fire. Yeah, maybe we could. It was Beverly's turn to reach across the table now and take Herb's hand, soft and warm, in her own. It'll be so much fun. I'll check the stuff out online and I'll get everything organized. Sounds like a plan. Hey, do you need more coffee, Bev? Herb was starting to rise, ready to head in for the pot. You know what you need, Herb? One of those insulated coffee carafes, so the coffee doesn't have to stay plugged in to stay warm. But anyway, you stay right here. I can get the coffee. You don't have to wait on me hand and foot, you know. Beverly went in for the coffee pot, practically skipping on air. She returned the same way, happiness radiating from the hand she placed on Herb's shoulder as she refilled his cup. Her hand came away cold. Look at this article. Angry was the finger that Herb jabbed into the newsprint. These two queers are all sad and sobby because some baker refused to make them a wedding cake. And they expect me to feel bad for them? They shouldn't even be allowed to get married. It goes against all the laws of God. Disgust boiled in the voice that spewed from Herb's mouth. It says it right in the Bible. Marriage is meant to be between a man and a woman. Gay marriage and gay rights. What about the baker's rights? Why should he be forced to do something he doesn't believe in? It would be like joining hands with the devil and spitting in God's face. Herb slapped the paper closed with an agitated hand and gave it an irate shove. Slap. A sound too close to home. Beverly startled as a memory jarred loose, a memory of a different slap, delivered by the hand of a different Beverly. A Beverly that had held the same hate-filled opinion as Herb. A Beverly that no longer existed. The newspaper slid across the table with Herb's shove and toppled over the edge, catching the breeze as it fell to skitter across the patio and take nest in the rose bush beside the sliding glass door. It can stay there, Herb muttered. Instead, Beverly went to rescue it, careful not to rip the thin sheets as she freed them from the thorny branches. She folded the newspaper neatly and laid it, offensive article side up, on the table again, next to Herb. Herb barely noticed. He was grabbing, still agitated, for his coffee cup. Coffee slashed out at his rough touch and ran down his hand. Damn, that's hot. He winced as he wiped the spill from his hand and off the table with a napkin. I guess I wasn't paying any attention that you refilled my cup. He smiled at Beverly apologetically, almost surprised to see her there, so absorbed had he been in his protestations. Sorry about ranting like that. I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but there's some things that just go against my grain, and perverts are one of them. Gay rights. Them and their ideas disgust me. How much of love was sex? And how much of sex was love? Beverly took her seat again across from Herb, deliberately letting one leg slip out from the fold of her robe to lay liberated and proud above the other as she crossed her legs. We all begin the same, you know. She spoke quietly, bringing her coffee cup to her lips and looking pointedly over the top of the cup at Herb as she took a sip. Tiny specks of life, too small to even see. Herb wasn't paying attention. His eyes were on her leg. Did I tell you that my son was coming for a visit next week? Herb's eyes, they were bright and lively now, no longer stormy and dark, left her leg and looked up at her face. You did. I'm looking forward to meeting him. Actually, I think I remember your son from when he played high school football. My daughter was a cheerleader. I'm pretty sure she had a crush on him. Herb chuckled at the memory. Jay's bringing his whole family. He's anxious for his daughter to see where her roots came from. My granddaughter was born here, but she doesn't really remember anything about it. She was only 7 when they moved to New York. She's 14 now. And he's excited to show Adrian around, too. The quaint village he grew up in and all the places he used to frequent. Is Adrian Jay's wife? No, but they've been living together for several years now. I smell marriage in their future, which makes me very happy. I just love Adrian. Well, I'll be looking very much forward to meeting your granddaughter and future daughter-in-law. Son-in-law. Herb looked confused. What was that again? I missed what you said. No, you probably didn't. Son-in-law is what I said. Adrian will be my son-in-law, and he won't be Jay's wife. He'll be Jay's husband. Herb stared at Beverly, his eyes blinking fast, like a directionless turn signal. Excuse me. In case you haven't quite figured it out, my son's gay. Beverly paused, giving Herb's brain a chance to catch up with her words. I'm proud of my son, Herb, of what he has accomplished, of the man he has become. He and his family are very important to me, and we come as a package deal, like pancakes and maple syrup. If you can't accept him, then you don't get me either. Would Herb be around to shake Jay's hand when he came for his visit next week? Would there ever be a jazzy trip to Hendricks, where Beverly would cozy up beside Herb in a bed and breakfast's canopy bed at the end of a delightful day? Would she ever find out what was in that tiny velvet box she had mistakenly glimpsed tucked in Herb's underwear drawer under his size 52 boxer shorts? Blink once for yes and twice for no. Blink constantly for muddled uncertainty. Wordlessly open and close your mouth for answer in murky water and sinking fast. Beverly rose from her seat. Silently, she stood in the murky water and reached across the muddled uncertainty to collect the breakfast dishes and stack them up. She picked up the stack and started to carry it towards the house. Finally, the opening and closing of Herb's mouth produced words. Just leave those on the counter. There's no need for you to stay. I can clean up on myself. and Beverly guessed that that was her answer. Thank you for listening. I'm Diane Rivoli.